Hello and welcome to this Throwback Big Finish review. Today I've decided to start a series in which I look at every single release from Big Finish for the 8th Doctor. Currently I have everything up until Blood of the Daleks and everything from Dark Eyes 1 onward. I haven't got most of the Lucy era, so I'm going to have to keep an eye out for sales. But since we've got the Charlie era to cover first, it's going to be a while before we have to worry about that. But before we get into the actual video, please, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you can stay up to date with all the content I release. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and comment below what other stuff you'd like me to review. And without further ado, we look at the first release with the 8th Doctor, Storm Warning. This was technically the first time I listened to this story, at least in full, and that's going to be a case for quite a few of these. Some of these I'm revisiting, but there are still a few that I haven't listened to yet. Technically I've listened to the first part of Storm Warning as part of a promotional CD that Big Finish released a couple of years ago, but this was the full experience I've gone through, and I must say it was a really fun listen. It's very much a dated release in terms of stuff like the music and the very limited cast that Big Finish had back in the day, so there are a lot of recognisable voices in the secondary cast, but that just brings its sort of charm. Like, I love the stock music they used that was also in the Harry Potter games I played at the time. It was a nice, very nostalgic listen. In terms of the main cast, Paul McGann and India Fisher, from the offset, these two were great. A lot of people say that McGann took a while to get into the role, but I think he was pretty good from this release.
TARDIS manual, not here, are you? I really must sort through these shelves properly some century soon. Oh! Agatha Christie, the murder of Roger Ackroyd. First printing, signed, with the last page missing. Now I'll never know who done it. Now, let's see. War and Peace, the I Spy Book of British Birds, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Just look at the binding on this one. Published 1831 and in mint condition, too.
It was nice to hear the more upbeat, romantic 8th Doctor. I'm so used to the very solemn and stern 8 from beyond the events of Zagreus. It was nice to see his more positive side here. In terms of Charlie, played by India Fisher, she is definitely my go-to example of how you can do the New Who style companion with the interesting backstory, relatable character, and having a major plot arc around them without having to be from the present day. This sort of character would not look out of place during the Russell era, and why I'm so desperate for them to be more experimental with the companions. The whole present day Earth excuse falls flat when you see characters like Charlie.
You and this man friend of yours, you stowaways, eh?
The Doctor is not my man friend, Mr. Rathbone. He's, well, I'm not quite sure what he is, but he seems to think he's very well connected. As for me, I'm an explorer, an Edwardian adventuress. I mean, it's the first time I've ever done anything like this, but you've got to start somewhere, haven't you?
I mean, she's pretty much Doctor Who's answer to a Disney princess. If Disney were ever to release their own version of Doctor Who, like a film adaptation, 8 and Charlie are probably the best team for them to go for. The story itself sees the 8th Doctor ending up on the R101, the airship on its maiden voyage, doomed to crash and wipe out the entire crew. Much like in the waters of Mars, the Doctor is in a position where he can't change events and has to let the ship crash, and is desperate to escape. However, when he meets and befriends Charlie, he realises that he can't let her die, particularly because she's not even meant to be on the ship, as she snuck on board to fulfill her dream of becoming an adventurer and going to Singapore.
What's this great secret you really shouldn't be telling me?
You're not supposed to be here, are you, Charlie?
Doctor, you know that already.
No, I mean, you are really not supposed to be here, are you?
No, I'm not. Oh, come on, Doctor, what's the matter?
It's just like I say, if I remember my Earth history correctly, the R-101 airship took to the skies for her maiden voyage to India early in October 1930.
Yes, and?
And crashed in flames in France during a storm in the early hours of the next morning, killing everyone aboard.
And you're saying that's what's going to happen to us?
Yes, Charlie, I'm very much afraid I am.
But before they can escape, the Doctor and Charlie end up getting wrapped up in a mystery involving a passenger who's not human.
Who's this?
I don't know, Doctor. I just found him here. I don't think he can breathe through this contraption.
You just leave the passenger alone, doll. Not your concern.
A very special passenger to be held in a sealed cabin, trussed up in a deep-sea diver's suit, being fed oxygen through all these tubes. And I think Miss Pollard here is right. You are having trouble breathing, aren't you?
You're a doctor? Well, you show some regard for your own health, huh? Now stand up and leave the passenger be.
Rathbone, a revolver isn't at its most effective when held by a man with a half-eaten and scalded forearm.
I can manage. Now, you say the creature's coming back. You know so much about it, you can kill it, right?
It's all right. The nasty bird thing is gone now. I think he's getting better.
You see? The girl can stay here. Help me make the passenger comfortable. You two, go sort out the roof, dear.
This was a very fun pseudo-historical and a good introduction to our new companion and reintroduction to the Eighth Doctor. It's a good opportunity to help McGann settle back into the role after a couple of years away from it. I love the fact that 8 and Charlie have instant chemistry, and it really sells them as a good dynamic and TARDIS team that I look forward to seeing their evolution in chronological order. I know where they're eventually going to end up, but I haven't seen all the details and listened to these stories randomly. So hopefully the arc ends up paying off overall. You get hints towards the consequences of the Doctor saving Charlie in the end. Spoilers. I mean, the fact that she's going to be in the next couple of, the next few stories suggests that she survives, but the consequences of that will slowly come into play through each story.
Is that the greetings over with? What? I can do this too. How? That's good, isn't it? Geronimo taught me that.
How?
There, you got the hang of it already.
What?
Are you running away from something?
Someone.
No, it's definitely something. I can see it just behind your eyes. What you need is a hiding place. Hiding place. Ah, curtains there, perhaps.
Yes, whatever.
Come on then, quick.
There's not really much more to say. It's a very simple but entertaining story, and it's a good jumping on point for any newcomers. Basically, if you don't really need much context for classic Who for listening to the Eighth Doctor stories. His era is definitely designed for people who are only familiar with the new series, and the only thing you really need, the only context, is probably the TV movie, but even then you don't really need that. You can either start here, Storm Warning, or if you're not quite ready for the more experimental style of the Charlie era, because this was very much released when Doctor Who was in a position where it's probably not going to come back. At least that was the perception most people were having, and so Big Finish very much just sort of did their own thing, their own unique style. I think a lot of people might prefer Blood of the Daleks, as it's very much designed to be in keeping with Russell T Davies' era and has a more traditional companion. But as I said before, Charlie kind of fits all the archetypes that you'd see in a new series companion. I wouldn't be surprised if this kind of companion ended up being really popular if it was done by, say, Russell T Davies or Stephen Moffat. The only real change they'd probably do to the character is give her a more humble background rather than have her be from like an upper class family. But that we can only dream that one day they'll finally experiment and give us a historical or future companion in the TV series. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this story. It's been around for a good 20 years at this point, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time where I cover Sword of Orion. Also, gotta say, I love David Arnold's version of the Doctor Who theme. One of the best.